Pam Bondi walked into that hearing thinking it was just another day at the office. But what happened next wasn't routine, it was brutal. Senator Patty Murray didn't just question her, she tore straight through the facade, exposing cracks that Bondi couldn't cover up.
And here's how we will follow them when we get to the United Supreme Court.
I need to ask
we're winning.
a number of questions.
And so yes,
I know
we're following the orders of the court.
Now, Pam Bondi has been through rough hearings before. She's not new to the heat. But this was different. This wasn't about some minor policy disagreement or a tricky budget number. This was about whether the Department of Justice itself could still be trusted. Whether the country's top law enforcement office was working for the people or just serving Trump's every whim. And Patty Murray came in loaded, not with cheap shots, but the kind of facts and accusations that make people in the room sit a little straighter.
So I have questions about how and why those decisions are being made, and importantly, whether you're adequately resourcing DOJ to do its job.
The moment started with Murray's opening words, and she didn't hold back. She looked Bondi dead in the eye and said, "We are in a deeply alarming moment where law and order are being replaced by chaos, corruption, and really whatever Trump wants." That wasn't just a statement, it was a framing device. She was setting the stage for Bondi, basically saying, "You're not here to talk numbers, you're here to answer for the soul of the Justice Department." And Bondi? Well, she cracked. Not all at once, not with tears or shouting. But in those tiny moments when her polished answers slipped and the pressure started showing.
I'm not going to talk about anything that's alleged. What I will talk about with you, hold on, you asked me a question and I get to answer it. What you asked me, alleged conduct that's part of a pending whistleblower lawsuit that was filed on the eve prior to Emil Bove's hearing today.
See, the first big hit came when Murray brought up a whistleblower complaint. This wasn't some distant rumor, it was fresh. A whistleblower had alleged that senior DOJ officials, people in Bondi's orbit, had actually suggested defying court orders. Just think about that for a second. The Justice Department, an institution built on upholding the law, allegedly considers tossing aside rulings it doesn't like. And Murray wanted answers. She asked Bondi point blank if she would commit to investigating if she would prove that DOJ independence still meant something. And here's where you could see the tension snap. Bondi tried to brush it off, tried to pivot into her usual talking points. But Murray wasn't having it. She cut through the vagueness and demanded a straight answer. Watching that exchange, you could almost feel Bondi shrinking back in her chair, repeating rehearsed lines while Murray leaned in, drilling deeper.
I just want you to confirm for this you will not allow conduct like that at the DOJ. Yes or no?
I will always support and defend Emil Bove, and I will defend Todd Blanche. They are two of the finest people I know.
Then came the grants. Now, this might sound like boring budget stuff, but trust me, Murray turned it into a bombshell. She called out the senseless termination of public safety grants, money that was supposed to go to local police, community programs, and violence prevention efforts. She pointed out how these cuts weren't random, they looked political. Communities across the country were losing resources, and Murray laid it at Bondi's feet. And just when Bondi tried to recover, Murray pushed harder. She brought up the plan to fold the Office on Violence Against Women into another DOJ division. Think about that. One of the most critical offices dedicated to helping victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence suddenly being shuffled, minimized, and downgraded. Murray's voice sharpened when she said this would interfere with services for victims. And if you watch Bondi closely, her smile tightened, her answers turned clipped. That's the crack right there, when confidence gives way to defensiveness.
When you cut off the community-based violence intervention and prevention initiative funding, were you aware it is used to prevent and reduce violent crime?
Yeah, Senator, you weren't here for that, so I'm going to have to repeat myself. We have cut grants. I think we've cut 6%.
The thing about Patty Murray is she doesn't shout. She doesn't need to. She exposes herself by being calm, direct, and relentless. And that's exactly why Bondi looked cornered. Every time Bondi tried to slip into safe territory, talking about efficiency or blaming bureaucratic reconstruction, Murray dragged her back to the central question: who are you really serving? And that's where the hearing shifted from budget talk to something much bigger. Murray laid it out plainly. The DOJ wasn't just firing people, it was purging them. Career officials, the one who've served under presidents from both parties, were being pushed out. Buyouts, firings, sudden removals. To Murray, this wasn't housekeeping, it was sabotage. It was clearing the way for loyalists, not lawyers. And in that moment, you could feel the tension spike across the room. Bondi, sitting there under the bright lights, had no real comeback except to insist everything was normal. But normal doesn't look like mass firings. Normal doesn't look like considering whether to ignore a judge's order. And let's be real, Murray wasn't just talking to Bondi. She was talking to everyone watching. To every American who still believes the Justice Department should be above politics. To every person who wonders if laws even matter anymore when people at the very top seem to bend them at will. And that's why this moment hit so hard. It wasn't just Senator versus Attorney General, it was principle versus power. Bondi cracked because Murray didn't let the spotlight move. Every pivot, every excuse was pulled back. And what we saw wasn't just one woman under pressure. It was a glimpse into an administration where loyalty mattered more than law, where whistleblowers are silenced, grants are weaponized, and victim services can be gutted with a stroke of a pen. And you better believe the clips went viral. The second Murray's word hit, chaos, corruption, and whatever Trump wants, it was everywhere. Headlines, YouTube channels, social media edits blasting out Bondi cracks under pressure. And while the internet loves drama, this wasn't empty drama. This was accountability in action.
We are in a deeply alarming moment where law and order is being replaced by chaos and corruption and really whatever Trump wants. And your department's independence and its capacity to do its job have eroded before our eyes.
Now, here's the irony. Bondi thought she could handle it. She came into that hearing like she always does, polished, smiling, ready to spin. But what Patty Murray exposed wasn't just Bondi's inability to answer tough questions. It was the fragility of the entire system Bondi was defending. A system that doesn't want sunlight, doesn't want oversight, because exposure is the one thing it can't survive. By the end of it, Bondi looked like someone who had walked into the room with armor but realized too late that it was paper thin. And Murray? She didn't just win a political sparring match. She carved a warning into the record. If the Justice Department keeps bending to political will, then it's no longer justice. It's just power dressed up in law's clothing. And that's why this exchange matters. Because history doesn't remember the budget lines or the bureaucratic charts. It remembers the moments when someone decided to speak the truth at the exact time lies were winning. That's what Patty Murray did, and that's why Pam Bondi cracked. So if you only take one thing away from the showdown, let it be this. Power without accountability always looks strong at first, until someone dares to call it out. And when that happens, the cracks spread fast. Murray just showed the world where they are. And that's the story, not just of one senator versus one attorney general, but of how fragile power looks when it finally faces truth. Because in the end, Bondi didn't just get exposed, the whole playbook did, and no amount of spin can put those cracks back together.